scientists now are telling us, the brain experts are saying that just by asking without even answering, just by asking what you're grateful for, you get a shot of dopamine and serotonin. Think about it. It's having like your own pharmacy, what's going on here.
Yeah.
That all you have to do is ask, what am I grateful for right now in this moment? And it's the moments that make the difference.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Full Circle Podcast. I'm here with Jason Hershey, the co-host, and we have someone very special today, Lee Brower. Lee Brower is the founder of Empowered Wealth and the creator of the Business Family Coach, a revolutionary program for entrepreneurs and business leaders. Using a proprietary coaching model, the Business Family Coach applies the Empowered Wealth system in both businesses and family, the result in not only success and prosperity, but sustainable prosperity. He was also the author of the Brower Quadrant. He was featured in The Secret. I know Lee as a neighbor, though. So I grew up with Lee, and so grew up getting to know him and watching him from afar. One thing that Lee's really big on is it's actually called going big. It's something I've actually incorporated a little bit into our sales meeting, is where you basically start off in gratitude. So I want to say thank you for being here. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for Ty for organizing this with us so we can have a good studio. Thanks for Jason being here, and thanks for Kyle to listening in. That's the first audience we've had is Kyle. So excited to talk to the
Clap loud, Kyle.
Yeah. Clap loud. So I'm excited to be here and to learn from Lee. Lee's been somebody who's kind of been an example to me. Grew up hanging out with his family. And he's just been someone, my dad would always tell me, Lee's just a stud. That's how he described you. So anyway, glad that you're here. So thanks for showing up.
Well, River, you have been very special to me as well. And your name carries a lot of weight with me nowadays. Maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah. So I have a question. The company that you started, Empowered Wealth, one thing that you just asked Jason before we got started was, what does wealth mean to you? And it was kind of like a trick question, because everybody thinks that wealth is just coaching people to be like a financial advisor, like, hey, we just help people financially. Having read your book, The Brower Quadrant, I know that wealth means way more beyond finances, but what does wealth mean to you when you hear that?
Well, thank you. Usually I'm the one that's asking that question, what does wealth mean to you? People say empowered wealth, and I would ask them, well, what business do you think I'm in? And the first response is, just like you said, you must be in financial services, wealth manager, something of that nature. And the reality is I am a wealth manager, but I would be a true wealth manager, is a better way, an authentic wealth manager. What are those things, River and Jason, what are those things that you value? Want me to put it this way. When you hear the word wealth, what do most people think of?
Money.
Okay. So are there things in your life that you value more than money?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like?
First thing that comes to mind is my wife.
Would you trade her for more money?
No.
Kids?
My kids, my wife, kids.
I've had some people say, well, how much you talking about?
Yeah. Which kid and how much?
Yeah, exactly. But, these are things that are very valuable to us, right? They're at the heart of what about your beliefs? Would you trade your beliefs? Would you trade those for more money?
Probably not.
Yeah.
No.
Your values?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. So there's certain things that we value more than money. But however, if you look at our time, if we did a time map on where we spend our time, we make choices every day. And our choices, really, the choices we make us. Okay. Yes and no lead in opposite directions. Let me ask you this. What if I were to say to you, I don't believe you guys have ever made a bad decision? Would you agree with that?
So I'm glad you think that, but you're not looking too close.
Yeah, you haven't got to know us.
Okay. My take on it is this, and that is that decisions are very aspirational. The word decide, think of other words that end in side: homicide, suicide, fratricide, pesticide. It means to cut off or to kill. So when you decide, technically the word was designed to mean that you are cutting off the alternatives. I've decided, okay? However, I think that most people, their decisions are something that they do in their past, and it's the present that determines the difference. So if I decide I'm going to be in the best shape of my life, okay, and I can decide it all I want to, but 5:30 in the morning when my alarm goes off, I have a choice. And it's to push that button or not push that button. And so it's really our choices that make the difference. So thinking again about wealth, we have a choice to my family, my work, my pleasure, my habits. We are faced every day with different choices that we have to make, and we can decide all day long, I want to be a good dad, good mom, I want to be a good businessman, but it's the choices that really determine. Choices happen in the moment. And the moment is where everything happens. It's either a deposit, choices are either a deposit or a withdrawal from your future. But you have other assets that, let me ask you about this. Would you trade your wisdom? Would you trade your wisdom? In other words, give away all your wisdom to get more money?
No.
Okay, your experiences. These are things that are experiences. Think about the things that are experiential in your life and how valuable they are. Your networks. How valuable are the networks, the relationships that you have? You know what I mean? So you start with your reputation. How valuable is your reputation? Would you give away your reputation for more money? So these are all things that are what we call empowered wealth. That these are the wealths that really empower you and move you forward. When you leave this planet, would you want to be somebody that was known for that you consumed more than you created, or created more than you consumed?
Created more.
Yeah. How about your kids? Would you want to raise your kids that they create more than they consume, or consume more than they create? So that brings a whole nother category of, contribution is an asset. It's a mindset. It's an outward mindset where the arrows are starting to point out when it's not all about you. And in today's society, when you look at social media and all the stuff that goes on, where are the arrows pointing? I was on a plane last week, and all of a sudden a passenger started yelling, "Help, help, help." And I jumped up and tried to get back to give her help. And what was happening was just the man next to her had a seizure. And when I come back, she said, "Help, somebody help, somebody help." Do you know what the other people were doing as I was moving back?
Scrolling.
Taking their phone.
Oh, videoing.
Videoing it. Nobody was jumping up to help. They were all jumping up to video it.
They wanted to go viral.
Yeah. That's arrows out. You see what I'm saying? That's arrows out. And we're living in a society that's that. So I break wealth into the 4 quadrants. Yes, financial is important. It is critically important. It's a lubricant, if you will. But it is the byproduct of the other 3. It's the byproduct of the other 3. I sat next to, when I started working through this, I had some challenges in my own life. I was starting to think. I grew up in the estate planning business. I had an office on Wilshire Boulevard, near Rodeo Boulevard. Our firm represented a former president of the United States, Lyndon B. Johnson family. Our firm represented Dean Martin, represented a lot of, and I loved this area of estate planning. How does money move from one generation to the next? And I started studying. I go to probate court every Friday. I used to carry Elvis Presley's probate records around me. Elvis Presley's and a whole host of different people. Because at the time, estate taxes were really high. You die, you owed 70% of what you owned. You had to pay it back to Uncle Sam. It was crazy. So I was focused in on that. But then there is a worldwide statistic, and it's still true today, then that is that over 70% of family wealth rarely survives the 3rd generation. I don't care what planning you do. So that's an indictment on that industry as far as I'm concerned. If only, how successful is it if less than 3%, you get down 3-4 generations, are able to move it beyond? And so I wanted to jump out. I wanted to become a doctor. I thought, I'll be in an operating room. I can make a difference every single day. And then something happened. I was listening to a commercial at 4 o'clock in the morning, getting ready to fly to Atlanta. And I was in the shower, and all of a sudden this idea hit, and I jumped out and wrote it down on a piece of paper, got on an airplane, sitting next to a lady. And I said, and this is where the epiphany of what we talked about, the true wealth really started happening. And I asked her what she did, and she told me about what her husband was doing. He managed most of the property for one of the wealthiest men in the world in the whole western United States. And she had an artisan shop where locals in Jackson Hole, Wyoming could come and sell their goods. And she worked that with her 2 daughters, and she loved it. She just rattled on about it and how good it was, and I could see she really liked it. I kept waiting for her to ask me what it is that I do. And finally she asked. And I didn't have anything to write it down on. I only had a napkin, so I pulled it out, dealt a napkin, put a little cross on it, like a 4-quadrant thing, and I said, okay, I optimize wealth. And she looked at me and she goes, well, what do you mean? What does that mean? I said, well, when you hear the word wealth, what do you think of? And of course, just like you, she said, well, the first thing she said was real estate, knowing what her husband did. Okay. And then moving from there, she went, well, I think businesses, and then she started going through stocks and bonds and cash. I said, so you're talking about things? She goes, yeah. And I said, well, do you, just like we just talked, do you have assets that you value more than your things? And we went through that whole circle, just like what we just went through, and got done to the end. And I asked her the question. I said, all right, you see these 4 buckets here? One bucket was money. One bucket was, the family, health, faith. The other bucket was experiences, reputation, etc. And the other bucket was contribution, being that person that can contribute more than you consume. And I said, how many of these buckets would you like your children to have? She said, well, all of them. Well, what if you couldn't give them all? What if you could only give them 3? Which one would you leave behind? And she goes, 2 seconds. It didn't even last that long. She took her finger, slapped it down on my napkin right there, right on the financial. I said, well, explain that to me. She says, well, I know this. If my kids are rich in their core, their character, their core, their family, their beliefs, and they're rich in their experiences, the people they hang out with, the learning that they get, the formal education, but also the experiences that they get, their networks. And if they're rich in terms of giving more than they're consuming, that financial is going to take care of itself. But if they're bankrupt in any one of the other 3, in any one of the other 3, the money's going to go away. And chills ran down my spine, because that was the point where everything shifted for me. In that moment on the airplane, that's where it shifted. And so from that moment forward, we started working with families and businesses in a completely different way.
So you're talking about leaving money 3 generations down, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's your philosophy, and how do you leave those core values to just one generation down? Like, just, as a father, a new father, it's like, okay, how do I teach my son to have the values? And, that hopefully that carries down multiple generations, but just to get it one level down, it seems like quite the task.
Okay. First and most obvious, walk your talk.
Yeah.
They watch everything that you do.
Yeah.
Science is now proving that little kids, okay, that are listening and learning, their inner talk is what you're saying to them or around them in the first few years of their lives. Their inner talk when they're 20 years old
Is when they were 1,
2, 3, 4, 5, right? In those earlier years, every conversation, you're determining their inner talk. So that in and of itself is an eye-opener. That's recent. And that's coming from Dr. Jim Loehr, Loehr, who had the Human Performance Institute, and some of the groups that he's put together around that. He was more on the physical side for a long time. He had 17 or 18 of the top world athletes. And he sold his company recently and started another thing called the Youth Performance Institute. And he said the difference between a number 1 athlete and a number 10 athlete is character. It's not talent. And how can we get more character in our youth? Okay, so that's number 1. Okay, walk your talk. Number 2 is, I think that there's so many different things, but our greatest teacher is our experiences. And if we can teach with our experiences, then our experiences help people make better choices. I'll give you an example. So I was speaking to a YPO group recently, and I asked the group, I said, can you think of a moment when you felt particularly proud to be a part of your family? And one young man just immediately says, yes. He says, for the first time ever, just 3 weeks ago, we have 3 kids under the age 9 and under. And for the first time ever, decided to take them on a hike. He said, I probably a little tougher than I thought it was going to be. So here's my little kids hiking, and then there's boulders in there, and pretty soon they're helping each other get over the boulders, and we're helping them. And then it starts to rain, and they start to cry. But they kept plugging through it, and they come down the other side, and as they're coming down, the sun comes out. And it was shiny, and he says, and I got down, and I could see him start to choke up a little bit. And he said, I looked back, and I looked at my wife, and it looked like a mama duckling walking with 3 little ducklings walking behind her. And I said, okay, close your eyes. What do you see? He said, well, I see my wife. I said, no. What do you see beyond that? And he goes, yellow flowers everywhere. There were yellow flowers. It was springtime. I said, all right, that's a yellow flower moment. Now, what we did in that moment is we created an asset for that family that could live on forever. I'll explain it. Because when I said to him, I said, all right, that's a yellow flower moment. Now you go back and you share what that yellow flower moment meant to you. And my prediction is that you'll have yellow flower moments in the future that have nothing to do with yellow flowers. Have nothing to do with yellow flowers. Or a hike. But have everything to do with your family coming together, making the choice to work together, to have the grit, that knowing that they can get through anything together, knowing that no matter how bad it rains, the sun's going to come out afterwards. And it's going to become an asset of the family. It's an asset of the family. And that's the kind of thing. Would you rather give your kids $1 million, or would you rather give them those kinds of experiences? And you do that by identifying them, naming them, and attaching principles to them. And so the principle of grit, together we're better as a family, these kinds of things. And my prediction, and I told him, I said, my prediction, if you'll do that, is that you're going to have your kids talking to their kids about yellow flower moments. And all they're going to have to say is this a yellow flower moment? And when they say that, they go, yeah. And they're all going to rally again, and they're going to know they can work together and they can kind of push through it. So I think use your experiences. Use the experiences that you can have with your children to find moments that you can teach them from, and they'll stick with that for the rest of their life. Plus, it develops another level of intimacy. Think about it in that family. If you were around them and they said, Dad, is this a yellow flower moment? And you were in a crowd, nobody else will know what they're talking about. It's a level of intimacy that's unique to you and to your family that you don't have anyplace else.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's one little hack, if you want to call it, that for me, if I can help someone find a good story, that they can use in that manner. And we do the same thing in companies. I mean, I can give you stories with companies where we've done the same thing, because that's the personality of the company. And so we work very, very hard on capitalizing stories.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, because when I was inviting you to come onto the podcast, you called me, we had a conversation, and I told my wife, Daisha, well, then I went and looked at your YouTube video that you spoke for about an hour. I think it's called the Awesome, what was it called? Anyway, you spoke.
Awesome Fest or something.
Awesome Fest. Anyway, I sent that to like 30 people. But when I left that conversation with you, I told Daisha a few days later, I'm like, my mind is like, you changed my perspective and made me like really think. And the thing that like walking away from the conversation was, I can get caught up really easily in money and how to success, because it's so easy, like just numerical. That's the scoreboard. And when I left the conversation, I just felt, I'm like, okay, what's really important in life is like the richness of life. And the richness of life is not the money, but it truly is having good values, having good connections, having good experiences, creating memories with other people, doing something that actually matters. And so that was my biggest takeaway from our conversation. But I want to talk to you about arrows out versus arrows in, because that was part of that conversation that we had. And I think money is important, but I do think often that when I think about money, I'm not thinking about how much he's making. I'm thinking about how much I'm making.
Yeah.
So it's arrows. Money is really, it's pretty easy to go arrows in. So I wanted to talk to you about.
Well, yeah. All right. Well, let me ask you guys
means.
a question. Just think about for a second, and then I'm going to, so I don't forget what I'm doing. I'm going to ask you a question, and then I want to bring it back to gratitude. Okay. And then levels of gratitude, which will bring me to the arrows. How's that for kind of a pathway to go? So the question I'm going to ask you, think of somebody in your life that has really made a difference for you. Okay, think about somebody that when you really think back, I can think back on a couple of people. One of them was a guy that was my teacher when I was 13 or 14 years old. I'm still in contact with him. It just amazes me. But once a year or so, we're talking. How many years is that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And but think about somebody. Another one of my dear friends, and I get emotional talking about it, was Coach John Wooden, and what set him apart. But so let me ask you the question: Now get in your mind, think about, you're not going to have to say who they are necessarily, but just think of somebody that truly has made a difference for you. It might have been a coach, might have been a neighbor, could have been your dad, you know what I mean? Could have been a relative, but somebody that really has made a difference in your life that you've overlapped with that made a real difference. Can you think of somebody? Just get it in your mind. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now that you've got that, was the reason that they made a difference for you, was it because they were interesting or interested?
Interested.
They could have been interesting, but the reason they made the difference in you was because they were interested. So think about all the things that you do in business. We start a business relationship and we can want to get our app right. We want to get our social media right. We want to get us right because you're being interesting. And everything you're focusing in on is being interesting.
Yeah.
Okay? And the reality is what brings the results is the connection that comes about as a result of being interested. And can you ever have too many connections? No. Do you see what I'm saying? There's certain things in life that have no destinations. Connections is one, no matter what happens in the world. Okay, I'm going to go down a path. I want to get it back to your question. Now I started to go down into the path. Well, bring it back in. Bring it back in. Okay. So looking at gratitude, first and foremost, arrows out, moving in that direction. If you look at gratitude, I break gratitude down into 4 different categories. Look at it as a pyramid or a triangle of gratitude. The first one you're probably not going to think of, but it's ungrateful. It's ingratitude, basically, ungratefulness. And so would you consider yourselves to be ungrateful? No. And I can talk to most audiences and ask them, raise your hand if you're ungrateful. And nobody's going to raise their hand, okay?
I definitely can be, though.
We can be in moments. So I have a saying that says, gratitude unexpressed is ingratitude perceived. Gratitude unexpressed is ingratitude perceived. So think about that. Do you see what I mean? So I could be grateful for you all day long, but if I don't express it, you're going to say, gosh, I did all that work for him. And I'm going to say, well, I've told you, how many times do I have to tell you I'm grateful for you? You can never do it too much, if it's sincere. So that's the lowest level of gratitude. The next one up is what we call social gratitude. Social gratitude is what your mom told you. Always say,
thank you.
Please and thank you, right? And so we do, and it's more out of respect. I would say if there's a current associated with it, it's out of respect. Unfortunately, in today's world, a lot of times, I buy something and the person hands it to me, and thank you means I'm done with you. Thank you.
Carry on.
It means I'm done with you. It doesn't mean thank you. It means I'm done with you. Off to the next person. Do you see what I mean? So there's risks with each one. But thank you done with sincerity. There's no more powerful word than those 2 words if it's done with sincerity. Fully with meaning of heart. The next level up is what I would call appreciative gratitude. Are you climbing the ladder with me? All right, so we've gone ungrateful, social, it's about respect. Now we're into appreciation. When you think of the word appreciate, if you're a stockbroker, what does appreciation mean?
It's growing.
It's going up in value, okay? So anytime that we appreciate something, when I say I appreciate you, it immediately raises the value that I have. Just by saying it, it raises the value in you. And by you hearing it, it raises the value for you. So appreciation is acknowledging and being aware of different things and different people and how to appreciate them, okay? And it's really kind of an attitude. What's the danger, though? There's a danger in each one. The danger is that oftentimes when you appreciate something, it involves comparison or expectation. For example, I break my arm, okay, or your kid breaks their arm, and he's whining and crying, and all of a sudden you see another kid walking with no arm. What do you say?
I'm grateful I have an arm.
Yeah,
It might be broken.
Yeah, but you tell your kid, look at that kid.
Yeah.
Could be worse.
Could be worse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And how many times have we had that thought pattern? How many have we shared that thought pattern? So are we hoping that other people have worse conditions so that we can feel better? And I don't think so.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So you see what I'm saying? And so that's where we're constantly comparing. And what do they say? Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yep.
Okay. And it truly is. Are we in a comparison society right now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The other one is expectation. Have you ever done something for somebody and they didn't say thank you, or you didn't like what they did with it, what do you say? That's the last time I'm doing something for them. Why'd you do it in the first place? Who'd you do it for, you or them? Do you see what I'm saying? So those are the dangers with that. So that's what we start to say. The danger of is that it's arrows in. It becomes about me. You're so focused on being interesting that you forgot about being interested.
Yeah.
Okay, so the arrows now are pointing in. And in today's world with social media, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? My grandkids, I can just hold up my phone and something happens to them. I don't know. I mean, at 4 years old, you know what I mean? It's just like instantaneous. We're building a culture of it's all about me. And look at I don't have to tell you the damage that's being done by that. And the opportunity to really build another generation is there. But at the same time, it's got the dangers that are associated with it. The highest level of gratitude is what I call empowered gratitude. So it's different. You see, it's arrows out. It doesn't rely upon comparison. It doesn't rely upon expectation. You know, it's just being in gratitude. You don't have to be grateful for something. You can be grateful in something. Okay? So, you know, many times, so you see that all the time. I'll give you an example. We don't have to be grateful for that child that's crying, but we can be grateful in that child that's crying. Okay? And so no matter what happens in our circumstances, we can be grateful in. Quick story. We're okay time-wise with the quick story.
Oh, yeah. All
Okay.
time in the world.
So I shared this with a couple, brilliant couple from Oklahoma. The wife really got into it, and then I get a call from her. She says, "You're not going to believe what happened." She said, "I was at a gas station, and a car pulls in with some elderly women in it. I thought, oh, good. This is a way for me to be grateful in. Arrows out. So she walks over and swipes her card in the gas pump. And the lady that was driving just leans her head out the window and says, "Hey, that's our pump." And she goes, "Well, I know, but would it be okay? I'd love to fill your car with gas." And she goes, "Well, we were only going to put $5 in." And she said, "Well, it'll be all right if I filled it up." She goes, "Well, it's her birthday, and we're going to the casino. Can you hurry?" So now think of her on the scale of the gratitude, okay? She was wanting to be way up here. She's slowly coming down here. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, she does it. She fills up the car. She puts it away. She says, "Thank you very much for letting me do it." It's okay. And off they drive. Okay? And she's like, ooh. And she's trying really hard. And I know her that she's trying really hard. She's thinking to herself, I just need to be grateful that I have the capability to do that. I'm grateful that we have the wherewithal to do that. I can't let what they're doing affect what I'm doing. You know, and I you know, she could go back to her car and call up her husband and said, "You can't believe what these old biddies did, you know, and da-da-da-da-da." And that news that news would fly out. But what happened was the car stopped right as it was getting to the driveway there. Backed up. The lady gets out of the car, the driver. It says, "My mom wants to say something to you." Walks over, opens the door, helps her mom out of the car. This is the birthday mom. And she goes, "This is my 80th birthday. Nobody has ever done something so nice for me without asking. Can I give you a hug?" Now she gave her a hug. Now think about that. When you think about that, what if they would have never made that reconnection? Then Marissa, the lady, drives on her own, okay, and she goes out and tells her husband, and you could send out a wave of negative experiences that would have its own life, its own ripples. And maybe then they get to the casino, and the mom goes, "What happened to this?" And so they buy somebody's lunch when they realize. My prediction of what happened in that car was this. She started to pull away, and mom looks at her and goes, "Did that lady just pay for our gas? You stop this car right now. You back it up." You know what I mean? I'm sure her daughter got a tongue twist, tongue lashing. And then she got out of the car. So, but even still, you know, the waves or the ripples would have carried forward. So that's where the whole concept originally started, was when I was doing that diagram, and I would draw a little stick figure and say, over here, be careful, because arrows in with comparison and expectation. And when you get to your highest level, it's arrows out. And that's where it becomes truly about the other person with no expectation, no comparison. And we've had a real opportunity to see in corporate America, in families, in different places where this has really blessed their lives. In our home, our son Bo, that you know, came home one day and said, I was going through the drive-thru and I got up there to pay. I think it was at McDonald's, and he said, the car in front of me, they said, your car in front of you paid for my meal. He said, I didn't know what to do. He said, so I paid for the car behind me. Now, he's just a teenager at the time, you know, and I'm thinking, well, that's a good thing, Bo, way to go, you know. And so you don't know how far that went. You know, I mean, maybe they paid for the one behind them and the one behind them. But it started a tradition in our family, and that tradition goes on to this very day. And the tradition it started at Cracker Barrel, because at Cracker Barrel, they can't see who pays. But to give you an example, just recently I took 4 of my granddaughters to Cracker Barrel. We call it a legacy breakfast. Okay, so I took 4 of my granddaughters, and we're all sitting. They brought their little allowance. So the waitress comes by, and we just say, can you help us look for somebody that looks like they really would like to have their breakfast paid for? And the girls are already going, Dad, Papa, look at that couple over there. They haven't said 2 words to each other. Let's buy theirs. Or no, Papa, no, but look over there. There's that lady with all those kids. Maybe her husband's in the Air Force and is out of the country. Maybe we should buy theirs. And so this dialogue is going on amongst my granddaughters. And then finally we decide on which one that we want to, we all decide which one we want to do it for. So then we quietly do it. We work through the waitress. We work through them to get it done. And then I said, now we got to go. And I make sure that I tell the waitress, make sure they do not see who gave it. And we do not want them to know who gave it. And we're walking out, and the granddaughters are going, Papa, can't we just see what happens when they get it? Can't we just watch when they see how happy they're going to be when they get the meal? No, you can't. Because I don't tell them this, because I want to see it too, really. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's that part of us that wants to see, did we do any good? But what if let's say we help the couple out, and the guy goes, what? They thought we were poor or something? See, we have no control over their response or their reaction. And then that would affect what we did. Yeah. Because it's so hard to practice arrows out, that highest level of gratitude. So it's just a way that within our family, we've probably paid for hundreds of breakfasts since then, or hundreds at least, where we've never once, not once, seen the reaction or the response of the people that received it. And it's just our way of practicing arrows out without expecting anything in return.
I love that.
So
I feel like it's really hard to, I'm trying to tie together all my thoughts around this, but just the concept of abundance and scarcity, it's almost like in giving, abundance, gratitude, and giving, I feel like they all kind of correlate in that same region. And anyway, I think one thing that Jason talks about a lot is he says, whenever my life's going bad, I just know I'm not grateful. I just know I'm not grateful. And that's one, when you asked me, you're like, hey, who's a person that's made a big impact on your life? Jason's kind of coached me, mentored me for the past, since I was 18, 10, almost 11 years. And that's what he's always talked about, is just staying in gratitude, being in gratitude. But for me, my mom is someone who's really giving.
Oh, your mom saved my life. I found it.
My mom's, I think she's an angel on earth. I think she's amazing. Big fan. And but yeah, she was always teaching us about giving. And I think it's a very practical way to get into gratitude. If I'm not in gratitude, I try to find a way to just give in some sort of way, because it puts me back into that state of being grateful, being abundant, and just giving and giving freely. And I've noticed when I'm scared, I try to hold my chips. You know what I mean? Mm. And so I don't know how to tie together my thoughts, but those are my thoughts around. It's pretty hard to give and not be grateful at the same time. Unless you have an expectation and then the person doesn't meet the expectation.
Well, yeah, that's what but scientists now are telling us, the brain experts are saying that just by asking without even answering, just by asking what you're grateful for, you get a shot of dopamine and serotonin. Think about it. It's having your own pharmacy, what's going on here.
Yeah.
That all you have to do is ask, what am I grateful for right now in this moment? And it's the moments that make the difference. we run into a challenge just like with prayer and being grateful. You know, all right, you're going to be grateful every morning. What happens is over time, you say the same things over and over again, and you lose the feeling. You know what I mean? I'm grateful for my health, grateful for my family, grateful for the weather, grateful for the da-da, grateful for the da-da. So what are some of the techniques that you can use to help you stay in gratitude regardless of the circumstances? You know, so there's a number of ways that you can do that. You know, we have one colleague that back in Chicago area that he created a thing called Potent, and I created a thing called Moment. But anyway, Potent is if you just take the time and think, okay, what people, using the POTENT, okay, what people are in my life right now, and there's different derivations of it, but what people are in my life right now that I should be saying thank you to? What people are in my life that are invisible to me, literally invisible to me, that I could be saying thank you to today? And let's come back to that one in just a second, because I asked that question one time, and I'll share what happened. But you know, so you're really looking at, instead of just saying my mom, my dad, my brothers, and my sisters, but what about them are you grateful for? What other people are in your life? And then the O is opportunity. You know, what opportunities? Not I'm looking for the big opportunity, but look at the little simple opportunities that we have. You know, they're so numerous that we tend to overlook them. We expect just the big opportunities. But there's so many little opportunities. You know, I was stuck after I'd done this in the morning one time, I was stuck in a traffic jam and I started to grumble. And I said, wait a second, how many thousands of people, millions of people would trade places with me right now to sit in this traffic jam, in this car, going to work with a job that, an opportunity that I have to work with people and do the things I do.
Yeah.
You know, millions of people were right. So think of the opportunities that aren't necessarily just the ones that, the big opportunity that's coming. Think about the real opportunities that we have. So then the T is things, you know, think about the things that are going on that you have. And again, not just, my brand new Mercedes. Come on. You know, when I grew up, I had one pair of shoes that went to church, went to basketball, and went to school. You know, I ironed patches in my Levi's. And, you know, because when they got holes in them. Now you sell them if you get a hole and you make more money. But, you know, I mean, but these are the you know what I'm saying? but and then so the E is experiences. What experiences am I having that I wouldn't normally have? The N is nature. So look at the beautiful nature, the things that you don't normally notice about nature. We just go through nature and don't even pay attention, you know, but what are those things? And the last one's my favorite, and that's thoughts. What thoughts am I having that nobody else really has?
Yeah.
One of the things that I ask myself frequently is, what new question can I have today that I've never asked myself before? And that puts you gets you out thinking about.
Thinking differently.
Yeah. So let's go back to what I said about opportunity. One time I was in Chicago, and I have the opportunity to meet with entrepreneurs basically once a quarter there. And they fly in from all around the world, and same ones come back every quarter. So I was with a group that, this is like their 5th or 6th year that they'd been with me, 35 business owners, highly successful business owners in terms of financially. And I woke up in the morning and I was just thinking about the things that I'm grateful for. And I said, who can I see today that's invisible to me, that I should be saying thank you to? So I got over there, I walked into the restroom, and here's this tall Hispanic guy cleaning the bathroom. And I'd never seen him before. I said, are you responsible for this? And he's like,
About
yeah.
to get my butt chewed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I am. I said, you do this all the time? He says, yeah. I said, you could eat in here. I mean, the floor of this. I said, there's people come from around the world that come back and go and work with, you know, you're making a worldwide difference just because you're affecting what goes on in the other rooms and what you're learning. And I just poured it on him. But he teared up. I walked back in the room. These people have been coming for 5 years or longer. I said, raise your hand if you can tell me what the janitor looks like that keeps these bathrooms clean. Not one hand went up. So sometimes just learning how to ask questions, that's a whole nother topic for another podcast. But learning how to ask the right questions at the right time in the right way opens our mind to see and hear things that we wouldn't normally see and hear.
I love that.
So
I actually had this experience about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and there's some things that happened between me and my neighbor, and we basically told them that we're disgruntled with them. And a few days, it wasn't really that big of a deal, but a few days later, I'm coming home and I'm on the phone with my wife, and my wife says someone's at the door. And as I pull up, my neighbor's leaving. I asked my wife, like, who is that? Like, what was the neighbor wanting? He's like, oh, he came over to apologize in person and to say I'm sorry. And I thought it was really interesting because thinking about that, I was like, I'm really grateful for that person and him coming over and apologizing. And it actually made me realize, like, how often do we do things that I might upset you, I might upset Jason, I might upset tons of people. I'm probably pretty good at it. But how many opportunities do I have to apologize to somebody? And that kind of opens up this chasm so that gratitude can come in, of to be like saying I'm sorry, like a real I'm sorry, is so vulnerable. And I think that vulnerability opens up a lot of gratitude where you can actually appreciate that other person.
No, that's a great insight, River. Would you be interested in maybe learning how you could take it to an even higher level?
I'm ready.
Without apologizing?
Let's do it.
You know, it's really, you think about how much we say I'm sorry, okay? And we say it all the time. I was talking with a guy and he got up, bumped into a table and told the table he was sorry. You know what I mean? It's just, we see it all the time. And I had a situation where it came to light was I was working with a company in New York. It's one of the largest distributor of cosmetics in the United States. And they had some, company was taken over by another company. They had some real issues within the company in terms of who's in charge, who's not in charge. And the one that had taken it over was adding new businesses. So it's putting tons of pressure on the existing resources because add another business and you got pressure on the resources, et cetera. And finally, he got it. And he says, can you come out and spend some time with us? I'm bringing all the vice presidents in. I said, what are you going to do? He says, I'm going to apologize to them. I said, you can do what? He says, I'm going to apologize to him. And it hit me in the moment. And I said, don't you dare. He says, yeah, but I've been loading on him. He says, you're the one that showed me I was. I said, no, but don't apologize to him. What's going to happen is when you apologize, they're going to go home to their family and say, see, I told you. I told you he was dumping on us. I told you, let's see what happens.
It validates all that stuff.
Yeah, it happens. Okay. I said, you walk in there and you apologize. You walk in there, don't apologize. You walk in and say, thank you. He says, thank you. I said, yeah. So what he did is he walked in and he said, I brought you all together today to thank you for your grit, your determination, for your loyalty. That no matter how hard or how much I dumped on you, no matter how much I put on it, you were there to rise to the occasion, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you. You think about your neighbor, for example. Conversely, if he had walked over and he says, I came over here to thank you. I want to thank you for your understanding with me.
Yeah.
I was out of line, but how you handle that. Thank you for your understanding. Thank you for your like that. And I'm going to do better. And now you see it's
totally different. Yeah.
It's a totally different feeling. Instead of he finally apologized to us, it's like, wow, he came over and thanked us. So the dinner table, when his employees go home after he does that, they're saying, gosh, Mark came in and thanked us for all of our grit, our determination, etc. So what happens the next time Mark unloads? We've got grit, we've got determination.
Yeah.
So if he comes to you and says, thank you for your understanding. I had a really hard day, and your understanding and understanding how it handled and what it did has really helped me become stronger. And so your understanding of me in that moment made a big difference. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
The next time something happens, you're going to be more inclined to have a better understanding of what went on with him than you are to get mad. Well, he came and apologized, and now he's doing it again.
Yeah. Here we go again.
Yeah. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
And what's going to happen to you now, I've really created, for me, what happened after that time is that I hear every time somebody says, I'm sorry. And I want to tell them, the waiter comes out, sorry that your meal's late.
Yeah.
Gosh, you're just creating, you're affecting future behavior. You really are, because he could come out and say, thank you for your patience and understanding. The kitchen was backed up, but I really, really appreciate your patience and understanding with it. So he's encouraging that good behavior. When he apologizes to you, you still stay mad.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's still,
You're focusing on what you don't want when you apologize, as opposed to appreciation. You're focusing on what you do
all of a sudden
want.
you're feeling better because you're a better person, and you just acknowledge that in him, and that'll cause them to raise it out even more.
Yeah.
Think about with your kids. Think about, I mean, what a great lesson to work with your kids. It's important for parents to apologize. It's better for them to say thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Sorry, our parents apologize to our kids. They want to be the enlightened parent. So every time they do something wrong, I mean, there's no textbook on parenting, right? We're all going to screw it up. But then you screw it up even more by apologizing. Think about that. Crazy, huh? Thank you, Junior. Your mom made a mistake. Thank you for understanding.
Yeah. Way powerful.
Yeah.
So Jason and I, we run sales teams, and one of the big things that we try to induce into our culture is this attitude of gratitude. I want to tell you some things that we do to bring it into our culture. So number one, we talk about it often. We talk about being grateful. We actually
I see it on your shirt. Come on.
Yeah, I'm repping gratitude. Let's go. We talk about being grateful. We begin in gratitude very often. We do things where in a meeting we'll do like a 3 deep breaths. We'll close our eyes. We'll think of things that we're grateful for. Every Thursday we do Thankful Thursday, and we have everybody's supposed to text our group chat of 3 people they're grateful for and why. But you have an experience where you were in charge of helping a country have gratitude back into their country. So what are the things that you did? And I want to hear the experience. What did you do? And then how does that relate to how we can do it in our business?
All right. That's a great, great question. You phrased it incorrectly, but I was not in charge of anything. Okay. There's a guy by the name of Chavez that was in charge of everything. So
I think you were. Kick Chavez to the curb.
But, from the movie The Secret, if anybody's seen the movie The Secret, it's still on Netflix. And the book was a bestseller for a number of years. And I did not even know I was in the movie or the book till it was out. Somebody called me up and said, "Hey, I saw you in the movie. I love this story about the Gratitude Rock." I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "The movie." I said, "What's it called?" He says, "The Secret." I said, "Well, it's a secret to me." And so they dramatized a portion of it, and it went in it. But it did open up doors that I would never expect. And Chavez did ban the movie in Venezuela. And there was a company out of Colombia that had a contract with the university and some businesses in Venezuela to bring in speakers. And so they reached out and asked if I'd be interested. And it helps that I speak Spanish, although, got to be careful how I say this, although, you still don't always know the dialect and the culture of what it is. And so I had to have an interpreter. So they gave me the former Miss Universe as the interpreter, which wasn't a bad, that was
bummer.
Yeah, that's a bummer. But she was very pleasant, very wonderful. But so we had the opportunity to do, so they kind of brought us in under the radar. The person that brought us in was the president of the newspaper, El Nacional. And I brought in with another lady that was in The Secret, and the two of us went in. And what happened was we were scheduled to speak at the university. And they were charging a significant fee, I thought, for Venezuelans, and for 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning at the university, and nobody was signing up. And I thought, and we drove around in a bulletproof Hummer, by the way, too. It was crazy. And we did some radio. So we did some radio stuff, call-ins. We did some TV with call-ins and stuff. And right in the middle of it, Chavez comes in and does what he calls a cadena. And a cadena means chain in Spanish, but it's over there it means that he took over all the airwaves. So he just comes in and takes it over. He gets his guitar, starts playing it, drinks his mate.
Everyone's listening to me play guitar.
Yeah, and the people in the studio are just going, "Oh my goodness, what's going on?" And they're just so frustrated. And so that was kind of the getting ready for it. We show up on Saturday. It was a Saturday too, so show up on Saturday morning, and standing room only. People had lined up. What we didn't realize, they did not want to sign up ahead of time. They didn't want their name on it, but they wanted to be there. Now, look, every time I speak, I get nervous. So I mean, I'm not. But when you're standing in a country that's out there and you're hearing gunshots at night, and you're driving around a bulletproof car, and then you walk into this university with all these people, and you got to go up and speak, I was pretty nervous. And I was walking around backstage, and I was thinking about it, and I had a glass of water like this. This is interesting that this is halfway. This is my Hawaiian tea stuff that I drink that's supposed to be healthy. And so I was looking at it like this, and then they do the big announcement and everything. And so I walked out on the stage, and I had this, it was half full of water. And I held it up like this, and I said, is this half empty or half full? And everybody started yelling, half full, half full, half full. You know, they're just so hungry for optimism and to look at things half full. And so no. And they're dead silent. No, it's not half full. Somebody in the front row goes, half empty? Nope. This glass right here, this is half. This glass right here is full. And it's full of water and it's full of air. And you need both to live with. And there's some of you out there that are saying, if this hadn't happened in the past, I would be here. If this hadn't, I didn't give examples because I didn't want it to be, but if this hadn't happened in the past, you're living in the past. You're living in that if world. If this hadn't happened, you know where I'd be right now? If this wasn't going on there, you know where I'd be right now? You're living in that past. And that's the half-empty past. But there's others that are living in the half-full past, which you're living in the future. When this happens, when this goes, then I'm going to be great. You're kind of Pollyanna. You know what I mean? You're just out there this is going to be wonderful. But you're not doing anything now. You're sitting there blaming it on the past, or you're hoping for the future, but you're not doing anything now. And it's full of water and air, and you need both to live with. And it's they come together and they work together in making it happen. And I had no intention of saying that. That was not my speech. That was just backstage. That just came out when it really happened. And so in working with the country, you first have to know where you stand. Where do you stand? You can't live Pollyanna. You can't. So I look at it from this standpoint. Is there anything in your past that you can't learn from?
No.
I've asked that question for literally thousands of people. I've only had one say yes. Only one. And it was a lady that was sitting next to me on an airplane, and she was unloading all of her problems to me. And I don't know how I got sitting there. And so I finally said...
Sometimes you get Miss Universe. Sometimes, just...
You get, exactly. And so I said to her, is there anything in your past that you can't learn from, all these experiences that you're talking about? She goes, oh, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And I didn't even want to ask what. She just volunteered it, She goes, well, my first husband. And then, here comes another onslaught,
Yeah.
And then I looked, and she had a ring on. And I said, well, you're wearing a wedding ring. Are you still married? She says, oh, no. That's my first husband. I said, well, how's this one going? And she goes, really good, really good. I learned from my first husband that didn't. I said, what'd you just say? And when people really stop and think about it, there's absolutely nothing that you can't learn from in your past. So if that's the case, who owns your past? You do. Can you change the past? No. Can you reinterpret it? Yes. And so this is where, if you can really capture those things that happened in the past, then they become your greatest teacher. Your past is your greatest teacher. Have you ever read something, let's say scripture? You're reading scripture, reading stories in there, or read something, and then you read it and you go, was this here last time? This is like it was written for me right now. You know what I mean? And all we're doing usually is reading about somebody's past, but we're relating it to our existing. So if we can capture the experiences we have in our past, then we can use them to guide us in the moment, to inform the moment. So who owns your future? So I'm talking. You can see how this has all evolved. This is the group that was living in the past. Who owns your future?
We do.
You do. Nobody else does. Asset or liability? That's up to you. Same with your past. Asset or liability? It's up to you. So your future is what you make it. But we get into the idea that a great future has to be one that inspires you. Just because it motivates you, it's not a future. Great futures have to have two characteristics or qualities to it. One, it has to inspire you, and two, it has to involve others. If it doesn't have those things working, it won't work, and they have to work together. And so if that future inspires the moment, okay, and your past informs the moment, where's the now? Where is the now? Past is what I just said. Future is what I'm going to say. Where's the now? Where is it?
It's what I am saying.
Okay. It's where the past and the present collide.
Oh.
Okay, boom, right there. So it's kind of moves with us. Okay. So I call it stacking moments. It's that moment right there is where they come together. So what only happens in the moment? What only happens in the moment?
Choices.
Pardon?
Choices?
Choices only happen in the moment. Exactly. Gratitude only happens in the moment. I can be grateful for something that happened. I can be grateful for something I hope happened. But I can only be grateful in the moment. Action only happens in the moment. Then you move, right? You're informed from your past. You're inspired by your future. And you come together, and this is where it all happens, in the moment. Now, there's one other that I've learned, too, that happens only in the moment, and that's confidence. We lose our confidence this fast, especially in today's world. You didn't get a yes on that, or somebody said no, your confidence goes out the door. You know, a like, a dislike, all that kind of stuff. But you have to guard your confidence continually because you can lose it. So what are the things that you're doing to make sure that those 4 things that happen in the now are the things that truly create your bigger future by using the wisdom of your past? And it's how I call it stacking moments. And if you stack the moment, then you get momentum. You with me? So it's stacking the moments to kind of make it all happen. And so leading back to Venezuela, we spent the night with the president of the newspaper came out afterwards, and he asked me if I would come over that night. And so he brought in the other leader from the opposition, a businessman, and we went to his house, and we stayed up all night long working on what are some of the things that we can do, utilizing El Nacional, using the business people, the things that are going on, and kind of laid out a structure that we spent up all night working on for them to. Unfortunately, with what's happened in the country now, the president of the newspaper is in exile. He had to get out of the country. He's over in Europe and Italy, I think, or Spain. But, did we make an impact? I don't know. It just takes one person that gets an idea and does something and is able to influence. It's just like ripples. I mean, you don't know where they go. You just don't know, but they're going. The one thing that we can never delegate, think about it, the one thing you can never delegate, you can't delegate it. When you talk about delegation, being a good business person, delegate, is your influence. You can't delegate your influence. It's yours and yours alone. And we influence every day, every single day. And I don't want to see everything I've influenced, candidly. I just as soon not see that. But it's a blessing when sometimes you can see your influence where it has made a positive difference. Think of the man in the restroom that was cleaning the restrooms. I'm going to guess he went home and treated his wife a little bit better that night.
Yeah.
Didn't go home and complain about the job. Came home and bragged about what happened. Maybe that made a little bit of a difference for that man in his home and his family and his esteem, to be able to do that. So.
Yeah.
When we talked on the phone as well, you mentioned this concept between like a river and a reservoir. And this is like, I think something's kind of a new thought.
Yeah, you like that, don't you?
I mean, arrows in, I love it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it involves my name. So, of course, I like it. So, let's talk about that. Let's talk about river.
Okay. Let's talk about river. So, I've had, being an entrepreneur, I've served on numerous boards. I've been CEO, chairman of many boards, bigger companies, smaller companies. I've had the opportunity to interact with a number of different people and entrepreneurs for the last 30 or 40 years. And I break entrepreneurs into 2 broad categories. And neither one is bad. I'm not judging them. They're just 2 categories of entrepreneurs that are out there. Both of them create jobs, create innovation, make things happen. One is what I call the reservoir mindset. And their question is, how much shoreline can I get around my reservoir? How much water can I get in my reservoir? Look at that guy's boat over there. I want a boat bigger than that one. Okay? That's motivation, not inspiration, by the way.
Yeah.
Highly motivated to get something bigger. How do you get fish in a reservoir?
Buy
Buy them.
Stock it.
Stock it, yeah. And if I stock big ones, I'm going to get more people to fish in mine.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have that enduring quality. You see what I'm saying? It's good for right now, but does it have that enduring quality? Contrast that with the river. Rivers, river mindset, you're more focused on the flow. Mm-hmm. So now I'm focused in on the flow. And when you're in flow, you attract. You attract tributaries naturally. They flow right into you. You attract wildlife to your shores. You attract spawning beds naturally. Wildlife are feeding. Flora is growing. There's all kinds of growth and nourishment and life, happening. And at the same time, you're also, because you're in flow, you're irrigating crops. You're irrigating pastures. You're creating electricity. That's a different mindset. It's an arrows out mindset as opposed to an arrows in mindset. And we're seeing more and more of that happen. We have a quick example, and I love this example. Without giving names, but not that I just haven't asked for permission to share his name, so for that reason I won't. But he keeps a very low profile. But he is the CEO of one of the larger concrete construction companies in the western states. And he really grasped hold of this idea. He's really taken it to heart. And he wanted to create a thing called Hard Hats to Heroes. So he goes to his employees and says, go into your neighborhoods. Arrows out. Go into your neighborhoods. Come back and tell us what's needed. So some came back and said, well, we could use Little Park. We don't have slides. One came back specifically. His name is Jorge. And Jorge comes back and says, our school, our elementary school and our junior high school, they need computers. Children need computers. So the CEO, my good friend, says, okay, Jorge, we'll buy them, but you get your wife and your children and you deliver them. And Jorge's like, what? With a Spanish accent, what? ¿Qué pasa? What are you talking about? And so he said, we don't do that. No, that's your job. You need to do that. No, you're going to do it. So Jorge and his wife and children. Now imagine what that does for Jorge and his family. What does that do for his kids when they see their father, what they're doing? What does that do for the schools? What does that do for the thing? That's arrows out. You see? So you walk into their offices now, their building, and they've got these 8x10 pictures of different employees doing these great things in their company. And they have a billboard. It's actually a billboard. I know that they have one in Salt Lake City. But it has a picture of a guy with a hard hat looking out over the community with all the buildings up and everything. Just it's kind of like out in the distance from the back. And it says, strengthening families, shaping communities. Oh, by the way, we pour cement. Now, if you were a cement laborer, what company would you want to work for? Do you think that they have trouble hiring? You see what I'm saying? They're inspiring their employees. And look what they're doing. They truly are. As they're structuring communities, they truly are strengthening families. How cool is that?
It's awesome.
That's the part that gets me excited. You know what I mean? And for me, my vision, if you want to know what my vision is, somebody once said to me, Lee, you're my Jack Grout. And I thought, that's a disease. It's got to be. You know what I mean? And Jack, but Jack Grout was the only coach that Jack Nicklaus had, to my understanding. Okay, from the time he was little till the time that Jack Grout died in his 80s. And Jack Nicklaus is rumored to have said, "I would never ask Jack Grout to hit a shot for me. That's my job. But I couldn't make the shots I make without Jack Grout." So my vision is, how can I find the Jack Grouts of the world? I don't necessarily need to find the Jack Nicklauses. I want to find the Jack Grouts. And if I can help them see something that they haven't seen before, if I can help them tweak what they're doing just a little bit better, so that they can reach more Jorges, so they can reach out and have the arrows out and extend this. I see that as a solution to what's going on in the world today. I think the entrepreneurial mindset is, I think that the great entrepreneurs, the Rivers, they wake up every morning and they say, What can I do today to make this world a better place? Who can I contact to make things happen? How do I make things better, faster, cheaper, easier? I don't believe that most entrepreneurs, most politicians wake up saying the same thing. They're basically, who's on my schedule today? Who's the whale in the room? How do I get his money? Who's the one in this room? What do I have to say different from what I'm saying here so that I keep this guy happy, even though I know that they're at odds with each other? What a nightmare to have to live that kind of a life. But I think it happens in our communities. It happens right with the entrepreneurs. It happens with your listeners. If they can really understand this arrows out concept and really focus in on character, first and foremost, character. If they could focus in on competency, if they could focus in on compassion, and if they could focus in on making connections, those are the leading indicators that have no finish lines. There's no finish lines in any one of those four things. And you know what? They're going to pass milestones that will make a difference in this planet. They will establish milestones that will make a difference in this planet. And if they're blessed, I was going to say lucky, but really if they're blessed, and the ripples they make, they're going to have people saying the same thing about them. I would never ask Joe to come in and run my business, but I couldn't run it without him. You know, and that's the mindset that counteracts that arrows in that's going on so prevalent today. 2 words, really, when you really want to think about it. 2 words, if you could get it to every politician, if you could get it to every business owner and every father, every mother, take responsibility. 2 words. Take responsibility. Well, that would change the world. Absolutely change the world. But you know how you elevate yourself? When politicians and leaders, not just politicians, but leaders, if they're afraid of the future, and they're usually afraid of a future if it's an unknown, you know what I mean? And if they're afraid of the future, then they're the only way they can elevate themselves, instead of saying, come when Kennedy says, let's put a man on the moon and bring him home, rallied the whole nation because he had a vision that he was creating for people. Where is that now? What do they spend their time doing? They spend every argument, every speech, everything else is spent doing what? Pushing everybody else down around them. That's the only way they know how to elevate themselves. It's ridiculous. Where's the leader? Imagine a leader. You probably won't have this in your podcast, but this part of it. But imagine a leader that stands up and says that he just gets elected president, whoever that is. Doesn't matter. But he gets up and say, I just want to say, first of all, thank you to the last president. Let me tell you what I saw were the highlights for his presidency. These things got accomplished. Boom, 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 boom. Now, knowing that, let's lift from here. Yeah, there's some weak points. Yes, there's some ones we can make better. But let's lift where we stand. Let's go out here and make it even better. I promise you, the nation would just go crazy. Except for, that's the honest people in the nation would go crazy. But then you got other issues that come into play, power, money, etc. But nonetheless, that would be refreshing, wouldn't it?
Very.
Yeah.
I love that.
You know.
Did you ever watch the documentary The Last Dance? It was the story of Michael Jordan.
Yes, I have.
So that taught me arrows out. That taught me arrows out. And let me tell you why. So if you watch that documentary, you watch Michael Jordan basically as he comes into the NBA, he's the hot stuff, he's the new guy, he's the GOAT, he's amazing. And he wins MVP with an old coach. Well, Phil Jackson comes in, and Phil Jackson basically needs to sell Michael on this idea of, hey, you should maybe not have the ball in your hands all the time. And in the documentary The Last Dance, they're basically the finals game. There's the finals game, game's on the line, game-winning shot needs to be made. And the plan was for Michael to say, hey, everyone's going to think I'm going to shoot it, so they're going to be triple teaming me. The last second, I'm not going to take the shot, I'm going to pass it to Steve Kerr. And that's what happens. So everybody triple teams Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan passes it to Steve Kerr, and Steve Kerr makes a shot. They win the championship. And then from that point moving forward, they won championship after championship after championship because of the concept Phil taught that team, which was plays a team. It's not about Michael Jordan. Stop worrying about being the MVP. Start worrying about being a championship player. That's what he tried to do with Kobe. Anyway, but I think it's super interesting. And so I taught that to our team, our sales team. But when I was researching that, I also watched a documentary on Doc Rivers, who is the coach for the Celtics.
Right.
And when they won a championship, they had the same concept of playing as a team, but they had this African proverb that they learned about which is called Ubuntu. And basically Ubuntu means that I'm only as good as you are, and vice versa. And so that philosophy changed the course of the Celtics, that helped them win a championship in Ubuntu. And Ubuntu helped change the Bulls, even though they didn't call it Ubuntu. And that's helped change, I think, the company that we work with. Like, that's our whole philosophy is Ubuntu, work as a team, work as a team.
How do you spell that?
Ubuntu, but it's
Ubuntu.
Ubuntu.
I like that word.
But when you're talking about this concept and politics and the country, it's like we're stronger together. We're stronger unified. But if we're always thinking, I need to be the MVP, I need to take the shot, then you might be the MVP, but we're not going to win a championship. Yeah. And it's like that's my takeaway is like our country needs to live in Ubuntu. We need to live arrows out. Strong companies need to be living arrows out.
You're the river, man.
The leaders need to be the river. You know what I mean? Not the reservoir. And that's the thing that would heal communities, heal our country.
Along that line, River, that's so your insights, your ability to see things. There's a Nobel laureate quote that says, "Success is the ability to see things that everybody sees, and think what nobody's thought." Mm. So you take somebody like that, your instinct to be able to see a movie like that you're taking away from it something that you're now being able to apply it. So wisdom is pure intelligence before the contamination of thought is another great quote that fits into kind of, that you just have that, you're able to use those things and pull it together. Along that same line, okay, so what's the difference between cooperation and collaboration?
Cooperation seems forced.
Possibly. Mm-hmm.
Collaboration seems like you're choosing to.
I think that's an element of it for sure. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with River. I think when I'm collaborating with someone, we're working together. Mm-hmm. If I'm cooperating, it's like I'm doing this to be cooperative or just to kind of go along with it and not be combative.
Feathers.
Yeah, not.
So I would say in the United States, for example, our traffic system is a great example of cooperation. You come to a corner, you stop, you don't run. If you've driven in other countries, you're taking your life in your hands if you're a pedestrian or something. You know what I mean? They don't really cooperate together. So when you cooperate, you work together. So when I cooperate, if I have a job and you're working with you and I agree to do something, I show up, I do it. I'm there at 8 o'clock, I leave at 5 o'clock, we're cooperating, okay? When you collaborate, you create together. And now when you're creating, you have the same vision, you're looking at the same things. You see what I'm saying? Collaboration means to create together. And that's the environment that you want to create. So what's the difference between the words compete and complete? Come on.
I've heard of the phrase compete to complete. I've heard that.
Well, yeah, you've heard that from me.
The difference between compete and complete, I think competition is like I'm trying to push you down so I can rise above.
Okay.
That's what I think the difference between the two is.
All right. So compete to complete. First of all, letter L. It's the most obvious difference. Mm-hmm. Okay. But you look at the root word comes from together. So if I'm going to have something that's complete, and let's say I'm a French chef. So if I'm a French chef and I'm going to complete something, all right, then I'm going to have all of the ingredients out in front of me. And then once I have them out in front of me, I'm complete. I don't have to have the cake made. I just have all of the ingredients out in front of me. So if you're leading a team, you want to make sure that before you kind of compete, you've got everything that you need to have to compete. Then you can compete. If you go back to the root word of compete, it did not mean to outdo, to outperform. It meant to strive alongside of each other, to work together. Just the opposite of kind of what we think. You know what I mean? So Michael Jordan competing against the other team members. But if he looked at it from a standpoint of striving and working together, then it's to make them better. One of the reasons that Pete Carroll got fined several times as the coach of the Seahawks is because he emphasized that when you're competing, you're making the person next to you better. And the harder you go, the better they become. And so as a result of that, he got several fines because his practices were too tough. You know what I mean? Some of the players didn't like it. They complained to the union, blah blah blah. But the point being that when you're at your best and you're not doing it for you, you're doing it for the other people out there. You're collaborating. Then you can compete or complete to compete. You know, you do your prep, you get everything together. That's the way you complete. Now together we go out and compete. So that fits all along exactly with, how do you say that?
Ubuntu.
I'm going to have to write that down later, but
Yeah.
That's a good one.
So I want to say thank you for coming here, spending your Friday late afternoon, early evening with us. I want to ask you one last question, because before we started, you said there's 3 things that are under attack. It was family. What was the second one?
Well, God was first. God first.
Yep.
Family second.
Yep.
Leadership.
Okay.
And leadership.
Leadership.
So I wanted to talk about the first one.
Mhm.
God, what's the importance of having a belief in God as a country? Because I think that's what you're talking about. Our society is we have an attack on God. And then what's the role that faith has played in your life?
That's a long question, but let me just say this. The ultimate arrows in is the assumption that you don't need God, that you can do it yourself. That's the ultimate arrows in. And the ultimate arrows out is, I'm going to do my very best and let God do the rest. You know what I mean? He's going to get the credit for it. I think about various situations in my life at different times, and it's easy to stray away, because you stray away not in big steps, you stray away in small steps. And it's the little things that make the difference. To me, the thing that's held me through some tough times, and sometime we could talk about what the last 15 years have been and what we've gone through in our last 15 years, and the experiences and the challenges. They're monumental. But I would say that what's really strengthened me in that is the morning routine. And if you're drifting or you're wandering, get your morning routine right, and then everything else follows. So I do a thing called PMED, okay? Prayer, meditation, exercise, and diet, in that order. And if I get PMED in the morning, I do a number of crazy things, So first thing I do in the morning is I give myself a high five in the mirror. Okay, it's crazy.
I love it.
I give myself a high five. I say, I love you, Lee Brower. God loves you, Lee Brower. Make this a great day. And I've done that every day since January 2nd of 2022. Okay, I haven't missed a day.
Love that.
And then the other part of it is prayer for me and meditation are very synonymous. I've moved away from a little bit prayer from words because of the rote. Help me to be strong, help my family be strong. I actually visualize, as part of the meditation, and then I address God, as our Father, and then I visualize each one of my children and my grandchildren. I see them happy, healthy, rather than saying, "Please bless them."
See that's done.
It moves me into, and then I see the day, and I see myself being the person that has my ability to say no to the very important, because I understand my essential. You see what I mean? Because today's world, there's so many things that are very important. So how do you say no? So my strength comes from the morning ritual, and then everything else seems to flow. I skip the morning and I start to drift. And as you start to drift, you start to lose sight of it. So I think developing practices of gratitude, and for me, just saying it isn't enough. You know what I mean? Just saying I'm grateful is not enough. I've carried a rock in my pocket. I'm sure I got one now. I've carried a rock in my pocket for 25 years to remind me about gratitude. But after a while, even the rock in the pocket, boom, got a rock in my pocket no matter what. But when I wake up in the morning, I squeeze it at night. That's when I'm giving myself high five. I'm saying, this is what I'm grateful for today. And you move into that attitude of gratitude at night. It's tied to my wallet. So as I take my wallet out, I put it on top of my wallet and say, okay, what am I grateful for that happened today? And I journal it. And it keeps me centered. It just really keeps me centered. And so it comes back to just arrows out. The minute I make it all about me, you start to lose ground.
Yeah.
And if you can stay in abundance and really understand, really, I guess the thing that's understood for me, and there's some stories behind this, but I'll give you the bottom line. When you understand, Lee, why you're going through what you're going through, no matter how horrible it is, and we've lost a son to cancer, as you know, we've had a number of different other things. When you understand why, you'll have not had it any other way.
Yeah.
And the day will come that you'll understand why. It'll all come together.
Yeah.
So that to me is a big part of my faith, is being able to just know that everything's going to fit together soon. And what I do today is important.
Yeah.
And morning routines. Skip your morning routine for me, and I start to drift. And it's that drifting.
That's small.
There's a great book, if you want to read it. It was written in 1937 or 38 by Napoleon Hill. It's called Outwitting the Devil.
Yep.
You read it?
Mm-hmm.
It's a great book. And I got it right off the press when he first came out in 2010. But he, and you don't have to agree with everything that's in there, but you certainly can agree with what causes people to drift.
Yeah.
And I think that's a word that I've latched onto since I read that book.
Yeah.
Him.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last thought is my favorite poem. I don't know it word for word, so I'm not going to butcher it. But basically, the poem is "Can you say you're lucky when?" And it says, "Can you say you're lucky when?" And it has all these like different examples of when you're when health is taken from you, or when this is taken from you. Can you say you're lucky when things are not going well? If you have that perspective, that like when you look back on your life and you can connect the dots and say, well, if this didn't happen, this wouldn't have, and it was all beautifully orchestrated by something bigger than maybe I understood at the time. So
I'm going to go find the poem.
I'll find it right after this.
I've done what I call a meaningful Monday. I've done it every Monday since 2014, so we're just into our 11th year now. Mm-hmm. And it's just off the cuff every Monday morning. And so that sounds like a perfect one to throw in there, because I know that there's more meat on that bone.
Oh, yeah. Can you say you're lucky when? By Aubrey Marcus.
Okay, I will find it.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you, Lee, for coming on. Jason, any last thoughts?
No, I'm super grateful that you came on, and obviously I was super quiet. I think from the moment you walked in, you're a powerful human. I'm grateful for the years of work you've put in to become who you are, because this was powerful for me. I really got a lot out of it, and more than anything, like, I hope that that it conveys through the podcast the energy that you carry with you. Like, I wish everyone could experience what I experienced today and the way that I felt just being around you, and really just you're definitely the real deal, when it comes to what you're talking about. So I'm just super grateful, and look forward to hopefully being able to spend more time around you and feel the way I felt today. So thank you.
No, listen, thank you for inviting me to be here. I'm here to learn, and I've learned from both of you, and you guys too, the audience over here that's making things happen. So.
We didn't even charge them. Awesome.
You can Venmo us.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you for listening. We appreciate you tuning in. Be positive and confident in all that you do, and most importantly, go be abundant. Peace out.